Hey, what's going on? What's happening, everybody? What's happening? Peace, 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 peace. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. What's going on, brother Kent? Shout out to you, brother. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. Peace. All right. And so today, I want to talk about something that's very important. And this is subject that deals with mental health, but black women especially, we got to get back to mental health. All right. And I'm going to explain why I want to get on this subject, okay? So this subject is about black women weathering and societal pressure. And what brought the inspiration to me was because of this article that I was reading from Insiders. And the title of the article is Black Women in America Are Up Against a Lot and It's Causing Their Bodies to Weather. That's fast. That's fast off rip. All right? So it's very important that we have this conversation, especially as black women, because we tend to think that we can do everything on our own, right? We tend to think we're a superwoman and we can get out there and do all these different things. We have this magnificent power. Like we got this supernatural power and you don't. Because you trying to do everything, it's going to wear you down. Then you want to know why you starting to feel fatigued, why you starting to pick up weight, why you feel tired so much, because you're trying to do everything. You're trying to put too much pressure on your body, more than what you can bear. And see, this is important before we can even talk about physical health and emotional health. You got to get to the mental health. Because if the mental health is not at point, then it's going to wear everything else down. It's going to cause collapse on your physical and your emotional. And I'm not trying to downplay any situation that black men are going through, but we're going to talk about the issue that's going on with the black community. We also got to talk about the issue that goes on with black women as well. Not just put the focus on black men, but also put the focus on black women as well. Because you got to balance it out. It's not fair to say, well, let's look at what black men are going through and let's ignore what black women are going through, because we tend to see that a lot. And when you constantly ignore the other side of the issue, it creates a bigger problem. And this is why women feel like, well, not all women, but there are women in our community that feel like there's not enough attention being focused on there's not enough attention being focused on black women. So now we feel like we're in a position that we got to compete, and it shouldn't even have to be that way. And I understand the narrative from where some women are coming from with this, because if you're going to focus on the issue that as far as the problems and psychological disorder, you got to look at that from a collective standpoint. But then at the same time, we have been taught as women to put more focus on other issues and less focus on ourselves. We have been taught to put everybody's issues before us. And we got to wear everybody's issues on our shoulders. And that's another problem. You can't wear everybody's problem on your shoulders, because you got enough problem of your own. So people might feel like you're being selfish by saying, well, I'm going to put focus on me and get myself together. And it's not about you being selfish. It's about you caring about yourself. It's about caring about your health. You're not being selfish. You're not being mean. You're not being trifling. You care more about yourself. Because when you try to put everybody's issues as your problem, that's going to wear you down, because you seem to care more about their issues than they care about their own issues. And that's a problem with a lot of us women. We become too empathetic. And when we become too empathetic, it wears us down. It's nothing wrong with showing a little sympathy and having understanding, but you cannot wear everybody's problem on your shoulders. You just can't do it. It's bad enough when you go to work, you dealing with problems. You wearing problems at work. And especially if you're in a management position, I feel for those who are in management position, because you gonna have custom people coming in with all type of excuses, all type of issues, all type of problems, and that's wearing you down. Then you got somebody above you, and then anything that goes wrong on the job, whether in regard to employees, whether in regard to some type of inspection going on, whatever the case may be, you got to deal with that pressure. You got to take the blame. You got to take that hit. This is why I would never want to work in management position, because you got to deal with all the pressure. And if you can't withstand that pressure, then you can't even operate as a manager. That's one of the things about dealing with management, is dealing with all the pressure. And trying to make a big impression to the people that are above you, and the people that's above them, and the people that's above them, that ain't got to really do a whole lot of work. But anyhow, let me get to this article. And make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, etc. All right? All right, so we're going to talk about the term weathering. So the term weathering came from a lady named Arline Geronimus. So Arline Geronimus came up with the term weathering. All right. So let's kind of look into the history of what weathering is, and then we can go into the article. All right. So let's look up Arline. All right. So let's look up the information about Arline Geronimus and why she came up with the term weathering. Okay. So Arline Geronimus is an American public health researcher and a professor of health behavior and health education at the University of Michigan, as well as a research professor at the University of Michigan Population Studies Center. So Geronimus is known for proposing the weathering hypothesis in 1992, which posits the cumulative racism experienced by Black women cause them to experience inferior birth outcomes as their maternal age increases. Okay. So it says she also has studied other issues regarding pregnancy, including the effect of teenage childbearing on the mother's economic status and the effect of immigration enforcement rates on low birth weight. So since originating the weathering hypothesis, Geronimus has extended it to implication for health across the life course for men and women in a variety of culturally oppressed, marginalized, or economically exploited social identity groups in the United States. Okay? So let's look at the hypothesis. So, weathering hypothesis was proposed to account for early health deterioration as a result of cumulative exposure to experience of social, economic, and political adversity. It is well documented that minority groups and marginalized communities suffer the poorer health outcomes. This may be due to a multitude of stressors including prejudice, social annihilation, institutional bias, political oppression, economic exclusion, and racial discrimination. All right. All right. So basically, the reason why she came up with that terminology is because she was focusing on so much of how stress can deteriorate one's health and cause people to not only lose their figure but also lose their minds, etc. And in this case, at that time, she was focusing more on the maternal health, meaning especially those women who were going through pregnancy and they were dealing with a lot of stress and the low birth rate and all of that. So the detrimental thing about being pregnant, right? For one, you already deal with a lot of pain. Okay, you gotta deal with morning sickness. You gotta deal with contraction, and then when you go into labor, then when you have your baby, that's the painful part. Then after you have your baby, you deal with post traumatic stress. What's not post traumatic? What is it called? Postpartum. You dealing with postpartum after you have the baby. It's a lot. So when you put a lot of stress on yourself while you're pregnant, that can affect the baby. And see, this is a great subject because you're dealing with sociology and you deal with the neuroscience, psychology, and also you deal with epigenetics here. Okay. And we have to understand that when we put too much stress on our body, especially if we're pregnant and we're carrying a child, that stress can be passed on to the child. So also, it mentions in this article, go further down, watch this. In recent years, the biological possibility of weathering hypothesis has been investigated in studies evaluating the psychological effects of social environment and political stressors among marginalized communities. This has led to more widespread use of the weathering hypothesis as a framework for explaining health disparities on the basis of differential exposure to racially based stressors. Researchers have also identified patterns connecting weathering to biological phenomena associated with stress and aging, such as allostatic load, epigenetics, telomere shortening, and accelerated brain aging. All right. Now, think about this. Check this out. Do you know that dementia can be caused by having too much stress? Because when you stressed out so much, you end up affecting your brain by causing yourself to lose memory. You're not able to remember certain things, or you're decreasing your brain activity because you allow so much stress to be in control. So when you decrease the brain activity, you can also minimize your memory, which lead to the state of dementia. Okay. And it's like when you go through that stage of dementia, you have to start over again. It's like being a child all over again. You're being a child all over again because you have to start from the beginning. You go back to that childlike mentality. Okay? Now watch this. Let's go to this article right here. So this is why the article is very interesting to me. It says black women in America are up against a lot and it's causing their body to weather. And this article was written by Briana Holt on February 11th of 2023 and comes from insider.com. All right. Now, It goes down to say weathering as we know it is a geological term defined as the process of wearing or being worn by long exposure to the atmosphere. More recently, it also been coined in the public health space as the process of wearing or being worn by repeated exposure to stressors, right? It says anyone of a marginalized background can suffer from weathering, but according to research, Black Americans persistently fall victim the most. It says what drives weathering is this chronic activation of stress hormones. So the more things that stress a person out in a race conscious society, the more likely they are to weather or weather more severely, say Arline Geronimus, a professor at the University of Michigan School of Public Health and Institute for Social Research and author of the upcoming book, Weathering the Extraordinary Stress of Ordinary Life in an Unjust Society. All right, so this book is supposed to be coming out pretty soon on March 2023. All right, so here's the book right here. All right, so you can buy it from ebook, which is $14.99. And the hardcover is $30. All right. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a decent book, but it gets into the psychological effects and it talks more into about weathering and societal pressure and racism. All right. Now getting back to the article. All right, so going down further, she said Geronimus first became interested in the topic in the late 1970s during her time in grad school while working at a pregnancy clinic for teenagers. She knows that Black teenagers were suffering from chronic health condition at large numbers than white teenagers of the same age. Her research led her to weathering the term which she coined herself. Okay. She said weathering is not exclusive to the Black or Latinx community, Geronimus said. White people weather too when they are subjected to oppressed circumstances. It is not a genetic difference. It's just the human biological canvas is subjected to oppression and hardship and leads to this physiological stress arousal in your body that over time, if it is chronic, will wear you down all your body system and therefore make you very susceptible whether it's to affection or early onset of chronic disease or obesity or autoimmune disease. She said these are the things that oppressed Americans die from at younger ages or become disabled from at younger ages or at least become chronically ill from at younger ages. All right, so she spoke on Black women, the impact on Black women. So it said Black women specifically bear the burden. We know that Black women are paid less than their white counterparts, are expected to work longer hours with fewer pay raises, and are the most likely to be in unemployment lines when those rates increase. Now, this is very true. Let me highlight this. This statement right here is very true, and I could tell you from firsthand experience. I could tell you from my own experience. It is true. We tend to have to work longer hours. You'll see more and more of us at unemployment office. One year I went to the unemployment office. Okay, I had to file for partial unemployment because I think no, it was during the time that I had got terminated from one of my jobs. All right, over some little petty stuff. Right. Because of the manager own doing, let's just put like that, over money. Anywho, so I had to file for a partial unemployment. And when I went down to the unemployment office, I seen that majority of the people that was at the unemployment office were Black people. And not only they were Black folks, it was mostly Black women that was down there at the line waiting to get their unemployment. And then if you look at the job marketing, right, the blue collar jobs, which mean the jobs that pay wages and all of that, right? You will see that the vast majority of the people that work those blue collar jobs in the blue collar position are African Americans or, African descended people. Those are the people that you're going to mainly see. You're not going to see, in other words, any other groups out there, they're not going to out dominate those who are African descended. And then if you go higher up, you will see there is more non-African descended people that work in a higher position and a fewer black folks that work in those positions. But everybody else that work the blue collar, you will see that the African descended people dominate that force. And they're more than likely going to work overtime or be asked to work overtime. So, when the article said that we know that black women are paid less than their white counterparts and are expected to work longer hours with fewer pay raises, that is absolutely true. And can't nobody deny that. I can't even deny that because I've seen this for myself. Then it goes on to say that and are the most likely to be in unemployment line with those rate increases. Yeah, that's very true. That's not an exaggeration. That is true. But let's go further on. So these types of discriminatory practices shape the types of visceral effects that happen to black women's body, said Jen M. Jackson, an assistant professor at Syracuse University in the Department of Political Science. It goes on to say weathering shows up in myriad ways for black women in particular. For instance, if they're pregnant, it affects their fetuses and their infants. It can cause things like higher infant mortality rates, lower infant birth rates, and just overall impacts to women in childbearing ages, said Jackson. To the critics who will argue the long-term health of someone relies on their personal responsibility, such as eating well and exercising daily, Geronimus argues that weathering does not follow the same rules. And it says people can't escape being weathered to some extent just because they get a good education or live in a so-called healthy neighborhood. I explain why I'm laughing. Anyways, you can't buy yourself out of weathering if you still being subjected to these traumas and this constant need to be vigilant and manage your social identity and deal with the frustrations and pain and anger and just exhaustion of the constant reminder that you're not valued, she said. Oh boy. Well, let me tell you why this first paragraph or this first sentence made me laugh here. People can't escape being brethren to some extent just because you get a good education or you live in a so-called healthy neighborhood. Let me tell you something. There's a reason why I laugh at that statement because that's very true. Just because you have a degree does not mean that it does not come with problems and territory. And I'm not against people getting their degrees. I'm happy. Actually, I like that. I like seeing more and more of our people getting college degrees. But let's face the reality. When you get higher up or you get into that position, it comes with a lot more stress. It comes with a lot more baggage because not only you got that degree, but you're not getting paid worth of what your degree says. So if you got a bachelor's degree, you ain't gonna see no bachelor's degree money. You're not gonna see that. You might see something that's less than that, and that got you frustrated. So now you gotta go back to school and get your master's degree, and then you gotta go back to school and get your PhD in order to see extra money coming in. And that's real talk. That's real talk. And then neighborhood wise, going back to the concept about suburban poverty, that is an all-time high. right? I mean, well, it's not all time high, but it's starting to increase in the suburban community. You start seeing more people being poor in the suburbs. And then there's the changes slowly taking place in the suburban areas because of the increase of poverty. Now, what does it create? If it creates poverty, right? If you got an increase of poverty, then that's going to create room for what? Crime. That's going to create a lot more crime because you got a lot more people that's poor as hell or that's living through paycheck to paycheck and they struggling. So now they going to get into that life of crime just to maintain a certain lifestyle. But the point is, you're going to deal with constant struggle. You're going to deal with constant headache, especially if you're working for somebody who's a jackass and a piece of shit. And all they want to do is give you a hard time because they feel they can do so because they have a certain type of status or a certain type of privilege. They gonna give you a hard time and they gonna make your life and your job a lot harder because they wanted to make themselves a lot easier. So even with people that have degrees, right, they go through a lot of stress. And a lot of these people, because of their profession, depends on what their profession is, right? And the amount of hours they got to go through, it gets to a point where they are mentally drained. And in order to keep themselves focused, you want to know what they turn to? A lot of them ain't turned to God. They ain't going down and praying, going to church and all that. A lot of them end up becoming drug addicts. And you'll be surprised to find out the drug addicts that you see were people that was in professional fields. So don't be surprised when you find out more people that was once in the professional fields become drug addicts. Or people that was in the military become drug addicts. Because they're trying to get away from what? Societal pressure. And if they can get that high to keep them away from all that shit that's going on in their life, all the stress they dealing with, then that's what they gonna do. You can't buy yourself out of weathering if you still being subjugated to these traumas and this constant need to be vigilant and manage your social identity and deal with the frustration, pain, and anger and just exhaustion of the constant reminder that you're not valued. That keyword value. That keyword value means something. And for us as Black women, we don't talk about much of our problems out in public. We don't share our issues as much because you know why? We don't feel like we're being valued. And when you don't feel like you're being valued, you start to carry an attitude like you don't give a damn about anybody else. And again, we have put so much emphasis on ourselves and we put other people's problems before ours. And in a way, this is one of the reasons why I have such a problem when we dealing with issues that's going on in the Black community. Is so much focus on the male and not the community as a whole. And again, it's not to downplay the situation of the Black men, but the situation of Black women has been downplayed as well. It has been downplayed a lot. Like there's a lot of things that's being overlooked at. Domestic abuse, that's being overlooked at. Sexual abuse has been overlooked at. Sex trafficking has been overlooked at. Medical conditions that affects both male and females have been overlooked. High blood pressure runs rapidly in our community. And I was having a discussion with somebody the other night about high blood pressure. And it's kind of strange because high blood pressure is hereditary. It's very common in the African descendant community. It was common before the Africans got here to America. Could it be because of poor diet? Possibly. But we see that the increase of high blood pressure is not just coming from poor diet, but coming from stress. And high blood pressure is so common in Black women. It's so common in Black women. You got women whose blood pressure is so high, they have to take 2 or 3 medication. And who wants to live like that? What would be my solution? All right, my solution would be that if we focus more on ourselves, focus on our peace, focus on our mental health, be able to have a seminar to where we as women can discuss our problems, share our issues, share our experience, and we can be able to learn from each other and be able to help each other grow. Because that's another problem right there. There's lack of workshops in the Black community. There's lack of workshops. There's lack of women coming together and helping each other out. Especially when in other words, you don't even really have a lot of young girls who can look up to older women as mentors. You don't really have that. You don't see that very often. And I want to give a shout out to Brother Umar Johnson. No matter how we feel about Umar Johnson, he say a lot of things that make you think, that are very profound. And one of the things that he brought up was the high suicide rates that's taking place with Black girls, young teenage girls. And he also mentioned how a lot of these girls don't have women mentor they can look up to, they can go to about their problems. That woman in the community that they can talk to, that they can learn from. And that's very true, and it's very sad. And he also mentioned how you got these old heads trying to compete with these young girls out here. That is true, and that is sad. How in the hell are you in your 40s trying to compete with some girls in their 20s? For anything, you should impart wisdom. You should impart education, not try to compete. But this is what happened when you have a group of people who have arrested development. We suffer from arrested development. So even though we're getting older and we are, our body is aging, mentally we still think we young. And it's like you gotta get past that stage, but there are those of us that cannot get past it because there was a cut-off period. Because many of us grew up too fast, or we were traumatized very early. And there was a cut-off period. That all right, this is where your stagnation take place. Your stagnation is gonna start right here at this age. So once you have been stagnated, as the older you get, you still think like you that age. And that's the sad part about it. That's the fucked up part about that. But yes, and I want to give a shout out to Ace Hood wife. Let me see, what's her name? Let me look up his wife name. Ace Hood wife name is Shelah Marie. So Ace Hood, the rapper from Florida, his wife got a retreat that she does, right? And she done made headline controversy because her retreat is focusing on black women and giving black women a safe space to be able to talk about their issues and problems and things that's going on with us, etc. And so people done made a controversy out of that. But I say it's a great idea that she's doing that because now we got a place where we all can relate to each other more on racial issues and sexism and environmental problems, oppression altogether. But she done received so many backlash because people swept down that she's being racist by doing so. And it's not a case of her being racist. She's saying, well, why can't we not have a safe space as women to be able to talk our problem out as black women? We should be able to sit amongst each other and express our feelings, express what we're going through, and help each other out. And that's fair. Because if black men can have their own space where they can talk to each other about whatever they're going through, why she can't do the same for the black women? I think that's a greater idea. I think that would be a much better idea as opposed to just going to a therapist one on one and you talking their ears off and they asking you this question. It's a better idea to be in a group with other women who have something in common with you and have been through the same thing. They can understand what you're going through and that's willing to hear you out and you all be able to dialogue with each other and you can find network like that. Because it's easier. See, people work better in a group than they do alone. We see it with kids all the time. Kids learn better from each other than they do with teachers. When a teacher stand in front of the classroom, 9 times out of 10, the kids is not going to listen to that teacher. Unless that teacher is relatable to them and the teacher know how to communicate and know how to form a relationship with them. But outside of that, the kids are not going to listen to the teacher. And if they going to learn something, they going to learn better from each other, which is why there are some schools that operate where the kids can learn in groups as opposed to listen to the teacher talk all day. They can learn in groups and be able to work together and be able to do the assignment with one another, help each other out because it's better that way. It's better for the kids to learn that way. So that's the same scenario with people that's going through therapy as opposed to just doing one-on-one. It's better to do group therapy because when you do group therapy, you'll find people who have something in common with you or been through the same exact thing that you're going through and you find a connection with them and you're able to build and network with those individuals. So going back to what I was saying about Ace Hood wife, I think she's doing a great job. I think that's a phenomenal idea. People is going to give her backlash for it, but she has a reason for that, and I agree with what her segment is. I agree with what she stands on. We really do need that as women. We need a safe space where we can sit down and talk our issues out, vent our problem, be able to be comfortable so we can be vulnerable and not feel like we have to suppress our feelings or hold everything back. Um, the whole strong black woman narrative is wearing us down. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being strong in certain areas or developing strength. There's nothing wrong with having strength. But when you got to be absolutely strong about everything, that's wearing you down. It's like you putting tons of bricks on your shoulder and you trying to carry it. When you keep putting them bricks on that, keep adding more bricks and keep adding more bricks and add more bricks on there, your shoulder's going to collapse. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be messed up. You're going to have to get surgeries. You're going to have to be on the walker because you trying to carry all them damn bricks. You can't do it. I remember Erykah Badu's song, Bag Lady. And if y'all listen to the song Bag Lady, she not talking about a woman that's carrying a bag. If you listen to the deep meaning of that song, see, this is what I like about Erykah Badu, because she's very metaphorical in her music. Her music speaks with a lot of metaphors. So one of those metaphors is the bad lady. That bad lady symbolized a woman that carries so much baggage. She carries so much stress. So there's a part where she say, bad lady, you gonna miss your bus, carrying all those bags like that. I guess nobody ever told you. And she was right. In other words, you gonna miss your opportunity because you carrying too much stress. That's basically what she's saying. You carrying too much stress, you wearing yourself down. She said, one of these days you gonna say, ah, one of these days you gonna say. In other words, you're going to be so stressed out to the point that you're going to be worn out. You're gonna be weathering. You're gonna be tired. Because you carry too much baggage and you won't let the baggage go. You allow the baggage to wear you down. Now, some things you cannot control, but there's some things you can control. And what we have to learn how to control is the amount of stress that we intake. You're going to get stressed out, but you don't want to allow yourself to be too stressed out to the point where you finish, you're done, you ain't no good after a while. You don't want to go through that. You don't want to go through those issues. So what Miss Badu was saying in her song, Bad Lady, she's saying you carrying too much baggage. You carrying a lot of stress. You carrying too much weight on your shoulders. Breathe, relax, give yourself a chance. That's what she means. So when you get a chance to, go back and listen to that song Bag Lady by Erykah Badu. And listen to those words carefully. And think about exactly what she's saying. But anyways, that's my segment for tonight. I appreciate you guys for coming in, listening. And again, peace to the chat. I hope you all have a good one. And till next time, peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. So please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Share the channel. Check out all my other video contents. And y'all be easy. All right. Peace. All right. So I'm about to go ahead and close it out and relax and enjoy the rest of my night. And y'all have a good one.